So, something interesting happened over the weekend. I was scrolling through TikTok and I saw this video of a lady wearing this uniform that looks very similar, yet very different. So, she was wearing a uniform that carried the tag NYS. And my research was the National Youth Service of Sierra Leone. And then it was kind of funny because I felt at that time only Nigerians did this. So I decided to do some quick research about NYSC in other countries. And I decided to ask Gemini AI. So this is what I came up with. Now, my first question for Gemini AI was, what is NYS in Sierra Leone?
In Sierra Leone, NYS stands for the National Youth Service. It is a government program established by the National Youth Service Act of 2010, designed to address high graduate unemployment and foster a sense of national unity and patriotism. It is a bridge between university life and the professional world. Key features of the NYS provide newly qualified graduate practical job experience, internships and placements in both public and private sectors.
Just like Nigeria.
Status. While the Act technically mandates all Sierra Leonean university graduates, the program currently operates a competitive application process for specific batches of duration. The service typically lasts for 1 year. Focus areas. Beyond just office work, the NYS often involves training in agriculture, construction, automobile engineering, and hospitality. Eligibility criteria. To join the NYS, an applicant generally must 1. Be a Sierra Leonean citizen. 2. Be between the ages of 18 and 35. 3. Have a degree from a recognized university or college. 4. Not be a member of the armed forces, police, or fire force. Why it exists, the program was launched to tackle social exclusion and help young people develop a positive work ethic. It also serves as a tool for national cohesion, often placing graduates in districts outside of their home region to help them learn about the country's diverse cultures and ethnic groups. Since its first batch was inaugurated in 2018, the program has deployed thousands of core members across the country, many of whom have transitioned into full-time employment following their service. Would you like me to find out if there are currently any open application portals for the next NYS batch?
So now I went ahead to check for the country that inspired Sierra Leone for this NYSC stuff. And surprisingly, and not surprisingly, it was inspired by Nigeria. Now here's the response.
In Sierra Leone, the vision for the National Youth Service, NYS, was long held, but it took a specific collaborative journey with Nigeria to move from a good idea to a functioning reality. Here is how that origin story unfolded. 1. The seeds of the idea, 2013 to 2016. The concept was championed by the Sierra Leonean government as a way to address two critical post-Civil War issues: youth unemployment and ethnic fragmentation. 2013. Former President Ernest Bai Koroma made a formal commitment to establish the service during his state opening of Parliament. 2016. The National Youth Service Act was officially passed, creating the legal framework for the program. 2. The study tour to Nigeria, May 2017. Despite having the law in place, Sierra Leone lacked the operational blueprint to run a massive graduate mobilization scheme. They looked to Nigeria's NYSC, established in 1973, as the gold standard. In May 2017, a 7-man high-level delegation from Sierra Leone traveled to Abuja, Nigeria. The delegation...
Now I went ahead to check about which country first started this national youth service, because in the comment section of this lady's original video, this girl was dancing on TikTok with her NYS uniform. Some said it was Nigeria that first started it, some said it's not Nigeria, some said it's Kenya. But now here's the response.
In terms of a modern, non-military, graduate-focused scheme like the one you're seeing in Sierra Leone and Nigeria, Kenya was actually one of the first.
Surprisingly.
However, the first title depends on how you define the program. 1. Kenya, National Youth Service, NYS 1964. Kenya is widely cited as the pioneer for the National Youth Service, NYS, model in Africa. It was established in 1964, shortly after independence, to train young people in civil tasks and national development. The twist: unlike the Nigerian model, which focuses on university graduates, Kenya's NYS was originally more focused on vocational training and non-combatant paramilitary training for youth who hadn't necessarily gone to university. 2. Nigeria, National Youth Service Corps, NYSC 1973. Nigeria created the NYSC in 1973, specifically to heal the country after the bloody Biafran Civil War. The twist: Nigeria pioneered the mandatory graduate model. This is the version that Sierra Leone specifically copied. The idea was to take educated young people and force them to live in parts of the country they had never visited to break down ethnic prejudices. 3. Tanzania, National Service, JKT 1963. Tanzania's Jeshi la Kujenga Taifa, JKT, actually started in 1963. The twist: this was heavily focused on nation building through agriculture and military-style discipline under the socialist ideals of Julius Nyerere. The Sierra Leone-Nigeria connection. When Sierra Leone decided to start their version in 2016, they didn't look at Kenya as much as they looked at Nigeria. In May 2017, a 7-man delegation from Sierra Leone, led by Dr. Sheku Kamara, who was then the presidential advisor on youth, arrived in Abuja, Nigeria. They spent time at the NYSC headquarters and visited orientation camps in Abuja and Kaduna. Why Nigeria? The longevity. By 2017, Nigeria's scheme had survived for 44 years. The Big Brother factor. Sierra Leonean officials openly stated they viewed Nigeria as an exemplary Big Brother and wanted to skip the trial and error phase by copying a proven system. The logistics. They studied how Nigeria handles call-up letters, kits, the famous 7/7 uniform, and the monthly allowance stipend system. Today, Sierra Leone's NYS is much smaller, training batches of about 200 to 800 graduates at a time, whereas Nigeria mobilizes over 300,000 annually. Would you like to see a breakdown of the specific differences in how Sierra Leone and Nigeria pay their corpus?
Now, there's one country that this scheme actually failed in, and that's Malawi. Now, I went ahead and asked a Gemini AI about Malawi's case and how the scheme failed and was a complete failure.
The case of Malawi is a stark, cautionary tale. While countries like Nigeria and Sierra Leone used their youth service to build peace and professional skills, Malawi's original version, the Malawi Young Pioneers, MYP, devolved into something much darker, eventually leading to a violent collapse. Here is the breakdown of how it rose and why it fell. 1. The Rise, a Vision of Nation Building, 1963. When Malawi gained independence, its first president, Dr. Hastings Kamuzu Banda, established the MYP in 1963. The inspiration, like Sierra Leone, they looked elsewhere for a model. Banda was impressed by Israel's Gadna program, which combined agricultural training with military discipline. The goal, initially, it was practical. It aimed to turn young Malawians into pioneers of modern farming and rural development. They were supposed to be the spearhead of the nation's economy. 2. The drift from service to surveillance. Over time, the MYP changed from a development program into a paramilitary wing of the ruling party. Indoctrination. They were trained in Kamuzuism, an ideology that viewed President Banda as the infallible father of the nation.
Sounds like North Korea.
The third force. By the 1970s and 80s, the MYP became a dreaded security organization. They were often better armed and better paid than the regular police or army.
So sad.
Abuse of power. They had the legal power to arrest citizens. They became an intelligence network used to sniff out and deal with anyone who opposed Banda's one-party rule. 3. The Fall. Operation Bwezani, 1993. The collapse of the scheme wasn't a policy change. It was a military confrontation. The trigger. As Malawi moved toward a multi-party democracy in the early 90s, tensions between the regular Malawi army and the young pioneers reached a breaking point. The conflict. In December 1993, after a young pioneer killed an army officer, the military launched Operation Bwezani, meaning give back. The army attacked MYP bases across the country, forcibly disarming them. The end. The MYP fled, many crossing the border into Mozambique. The program was officially disbanded in 1994, when Malawi transitioned to a democracy. 4. The Legacy, a Stigma and a Rebirth. Because the MYP was so associated with terror and dictatorship, Malawi went for nearly 30 years without a formal national youth service. The country suffered from a vacuum where graduates had no bridge to employment, similar to what Sierra Leone faced. Recent news. In a fascinating twist, the Malawi government has recently, around 2022 to 2024, been trying to relaunch a new national youth service. However, they are working very hard to distance it from the pioneer era, focusing strictly on vocational skills and civil service, much like the Sierra Leone model you were looking at. It's a perfect example of how the exact same idea, youth service, can be used to build a nation, Nigeria/Sierra Leone, or protect a dictatorship, old Malawi.
So I went ahead to ask Gemini AI to give me a list of African countries that practice this compulsory youth service, and which of them has a success story and which of them was a failure, from majority of Africa, North Africa, Southern Africa, and everywhere combined. So listen to this.
National youth services are spread across the entire continent, but they take very different forms depending on whether you are in North Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa. 1. The regional split, North versus Sub-Saharan. While Sub-Saharan Africa has the most graduate-focused schemes, like the ones in Nigeria and Sierra Leone, North Africa has a different history with youth service. North Africa, these countries, Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, historically relied on mandatory military service as their form of national service. Egypt has a public service, Khedma Amma, for graduates who are exempt from military service. It focuses on social work and illiteracy eradication. It is generally considered stable but less famous than Nigeria's version. Morocco recently reintroduced mandatory military service in 2019 after a 12-year break to address youth unemployment and social discipline. Sub-Saharan Africa. This is the home of the corp model. These are civil-focused, often mandatory for university graduates, and designed for nation-building. Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, the Gambia. 2. The successes, sustainability and impact. Success in these programs is often measured by their ability to survive political shifts and actually integrate youth into the workforce. Country. Scheme name. Why it's considered a success. Nigeria, NYSC Est, 1973. The gold standard for longevity. It successfully promoted inter-ethnic marriage and national travel. It is a cultural rite of passage. Kenya, NYS Est, 1964. While it has faced corruption scandals, its vocational training model is highly effective. Many Kenyan youths see it as a primary route to employment in the police or army. Ghana, NSS Est, 1973. Highly integrated into the economy. Most Ghanaian government offices and schools would struggle to function without national service personnel. 3. The failures, collapses and controversies. A program is usually marked as a failure if it becomes a tool for political oppression or collapses due to lack of funding. Malawi, Young Pioneers, MYP. As we discussed, this is the most famous failure. It shifted from youth service to a paramilitary terror group and had to be forcibly dismantled by the National Army in 1993. Zimbabwe, National Youth Service, often called the Green Bombers because of their uniforms. This scheme is widely criticized as a failure of the youth service ideal because it was used to train youth militias for political violence during elections in the early 2000s. It was eventually suspended due to lack of funding and international condemnation. The Gambia, their National Youth Service Scheme, NYSS, has struggled significantly with funding. While it hasn't failed by collapsing, it often halts for long periods because the government cannot afford to kit or pay the volunteers, leaving many graduates in limbo. Botswana, Tirelo Setshaba. This was a rare case of a government deliberately closing a successful program. It was a one-year service for secondary school leavers. The government scrapped it in 2000 because they felt it was delaying students from entering university, showing that even good programs can be seen as failures in terms of economic efficiency. Current list of programs. Nigeria, NYSC, mandatory for graduates. Ghana, NSS, mandatory for graduates. Sierra Leone, NYS, new, growing. Kenya, NYS, vocational, paramilitary focus. Namibia, NYS, vocational focus. South Africa, NYSP, volunteer, community focus. Ethiopia, recently launched a massive national volunteer service to address ethnic tensions.
So, back to my speech, not for the AI. It's kind of impressive to see that Nigeria has been, or is being, a form of inspiration for other African countries. I remember in the late 20th century and the early 2000s, Nigeria was very active in West Africa under the ECOMOG military alliance scheme, which was like an ECOWAS military organization, I think. And we assisted Sierra Leone and Liberia in their civil war and helped them de-escalate the matter. And now those countries are much more stable. And it's kind of impressive to see that Sierra Leone came to Nigeria to learn our own scheme of NYC and implementing it with almost identical parts actually. And then I was compiling a video. I took different clips when I was in the NYC campus. I'm also currently undergoing my year of service with the nation. And I took different clips when I was in the camp for 21 days. I haven't posted it yet. So it's just sitting. And I've edited it, but then I will be posting it very soon. And in case you are interested to see, maybe you are from Sierra Leone and want to see how we have our own campaigns in Nigeria, or you are just a Nigerian who wants to relive the memory, you can subscribe to my channel. The link to my channel is in the description below. Thank you, and see you in my YouTube channel. Have a nice day. So my dear Nigerians, when I was doing the research for this video, not really much research, but when I was just scrolling for this video, Gemini AI said that some of these countries, specifically Nigeria, where the scheme is established, has some issues with ghosting corpers who collect the money and they don't get the job done, like don't show up for service stuff. And I'll just beg you guys, please stop it. It's becoming too much for Gemini AI to carry it. Don't be say no matter don't cast it. And also, please stop fighting that Sierra Leonean girl in our comment section. She's our sister. We are brothers and sisters. Let's stop this, please. Thank you. Be good children, you hear. Bye bye.